What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. We have our Final Four set in March Madness. Matt and I are going to be doing a quick Final Four preview today where we talk about both games and all four teams before dipping our toes in the NFL draft pond, ocean, stream, whatever it is. We are starting our draft coverage on the podcast today by talking about the biggest questions facing us in the 2026 NFL draft. So looking forward to that. Probably going to be a longer episode, I would say, doing both those things. You guys know how we get with the draft, but some people would say that's what we're best at on this pod. So before I grab Matt, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening. We always love to hear from you. Hit me up. The groups are set for the World Cup. So if you guys want to talk World Cup, upcoming NHL playoffs, upcoming NBA playoffs, really anything sports related that you guys want to talk about, hit me up and I'll email you back. Really appreciate those. You can also go check out the pod on YouTube. Go to Fouled Out Sports. Give us a like and subscribe over there to help us grow that. But for now, let's grab Matt. Let's talk Final Four and NFL Draft. Let's go. All right, Matt is here. The first day of April, meaning it is NFL Draft Month on the podcast. Matt, are we getting excited for the NFL Draft?
Certainly not today, because nothing that we're going to see is true.
That's true. It is smokescreen season.
And also April Fool's Day.
Oh, that's fair too. It's like a double whammy. But yeah, I've actually already seen some NFL draft stuff that's been completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it is full on smokescreen season. So I'm excited to get into the draft with you. This is one of my favorite months of the year, with us doing all of our podcasts leading up to the draft and then the recaps. But we do have one order of business we need to talk about before we get into NFL draft stuff. And that is putting a bow on March Madness. We have our Final Four. We have UConn versus Illinois and Michigan versus Arizona. So 2 1s, a 2, and a 3. Matt, you got 3 of the 4 Final Four, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So good on you. And your championship game is still alive. Did you have UConn in the championship?
I did.
Okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty impressive. I thought I was going to be the one to have 3 out of 4 teams. And then Duke lost a game seemingly in a fashion that only Duke can lose high leverage games in March Madness nowadays. I thought I've picked Duke to win the championship each of the last 2 years. I thought that was a safe proposition, considering all of the advanced metrics and all of these things. Duke becomes the first number 1 seed in tournament history to be leading by 15 or more at half and end up losing the game. 1 seeds leading by 15 or more at half are now 134-1 in that situation.
I can't imagine being on that plane or bus ride home. Just
it's funny that like the deciding play of the game, the turnover at half court, was by Caden Boozer, the smaller Boozer brother, not the one who's going to be the number 1 or number 3, whatever pick in the NBA draft coming up. And just like for how good Cam has been for them. And like, I've been over this over and over again on this pod, but like Cam is really what made that team special this year. Like they were up there with Michigan and Arizona in terms of like Ken Pom and all the advanced metrics this year, specifically because they had Cam Boozer.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of what showed up in that game against UConn as well. In the second half, is like Duke could not get buckets and they were just throwing the ball to Cam over and over again. And they're like, please save us. And we've seen, in any sport that guys could throw on the Superman cape like only so much before it really catches up to you as a team.
Yeah, that really helped Boozer. And not that like he was hurting in his draft stock, but certainly helped in his pitch for being the number 1 overall pick. But I think it also kind of hurt the draft stock of anyone else on Duke, because no one else was able to step up. It was always Boozer.
Yeah. The entire tournament, watching Cam Boozer initiate offense at the top of the key, like beyond the 3-point line, they would have someone dribble up and then have him come out and get the ball beyond the arc and like set up their offense. Just thinking about like how suboptimal that is for a player with his skills. I mean, the fact that he can do it and did it well, I think says all I need to say about him. I have him first overall on my board for the draft. I have for a while, but I was just like looking at this guy. I'm like, God, if you could just have a point guard who could put you in good spots, like, could he have been even like as insane as it is to say, could he have been even better this season if Duke had like a real point guard who could like shoot and run the offense instead of being like, okay, here, Cam, we need you to be 30 feet away from the basket, setting up our offense for us.
Yes, and I think too that it did kind of allow him to show that he does have some playmaking chops. Not saying that he's going to be Jokic or, any of these other like super high level playmaking bigs like Giannis, right? That is a subtle advantage at the next level. Like, defenses are, if you are the scoring threat, defenses are gonna pay attention to you, and being able to get that 3 to 4 assists per game, that honestly really elevates a star's capacity, in my opinion.
The funniest take I saw in the last week was people on King's subreddit. Obviously, everybody's arguing about who we would want with whatever pick we end up getting. And a lot of people are like, I just don't want like Cam Boozer at all. He's on my do not draft list because he's just like Sabonis with a jumper and handles. And I'm like, do you realize that Sabonis with a jump shot and handles would be a top 5 offensive player in the fucking NBA right now? I feel like people like just say the dumbest stuff leading up to the draft.
Also, like a much better defender.
Right, but like, do you expect AJ DeBansa or Darren Peterson to be better than Domantas Sabonis with handles and a 3-point shot?
Right.
That's like one of the best players in the NBA. So we're just getting into like silly town here, and we're going to talk about this with the NFL draft because there's a comp I want to talk about later in this podcast that I saw today while doing some draft research where I almost blacked out when I saw it. But so for the teams that are actually in the Final Four, I had one thought on each team to kind of go over to put a bow on this. So UConn, there are 6 coaches in NCAA history who have 3 or more championships. And they are John Wooden, who has 10, Coach K with 5, Adolph Rupp with 4, and then Roy Williams, Jim Calhoun, and Bob Knight all with 3. So that is like pretty much just a list of the greatest coaches in the history of college basketball.
Yeah.
There. Dan Hurley has 2. And he now has a shot at getting his 3rd. And not only his 3rd, but his 3rd in 4 years. Of all those guys I mentioned, only John Wooden has won 3 or more in 4 seasons. You might remember that John Wooden won many more in a row than that between having Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton go to UCLA. But UConn is also tied with North Carolina for most championships overall. UConn has 6. So if they win this one, they would move into sole possession of 3rd with 7 championships. UCLA has 11. They're number 1. And Kentucky has 8. They're number 2. So I just look at this and I'm like, God, UConn is just the best basketball program of our lifetimes. I know there are probably like fans of other blue bloods out there like Kentucky and Duke and North Carolina who would argue, but as far as college basketball success goes, I don't think there's anybody that can hold a candle to them. I would say
the majority of the damage that Duke and North Carolina did were before we could really remember, at the very least,
Yeah, I mean, like 2000s onwards, so like the last 25, 26 seasons of college basketball,
Yeah.
I don't even think it's an argument that UConn is the best. I mean, they won
Yeah.
in the early 2000s with Rip Hamilton. They have the Kemba championship. The
Mm-hmm.
who is the other guy? I'm blanking on his name. Shabazz Napier. Shabazz
Yeah.
Napier. They had the Shabazz Napier
Yeah.
championship where he did his
Yeah.
Kemba impersonation. They won, and now they have two with Hurley in the last 4 seasons, and a shot at another one. So I think hands down, they are the best team of our lifetimes. Team 2, Illinois. I'm looking at Illinois and wondering if more teams are going to copy Illinois' team building strategy. So I kind of like mentioned this a little bit earlier, a couple weeks ago in the pod, and we didn't really dig into it that much. But Illinois has multiple players who played professional basketball in Europe before coming to play basketball at Illinois. Because like the way that the European club teams are, they have like
Yeah.
developmental stuff where kids get in pretty
Mm-hmm.
young. And I was doing some research today and found out that there are 26 guys in the Big Ten who have experience playing professional basketball in Europe before coming and playing college basketball. And basically, like the invention of NIL and being able to pay players and stuff has now made
Yeah.
it so that these European guys who are potentially interested in playing in the NBA see college as a more viable route to getting to the NBA than Europe, because it's more eyes on you. It's, you're
Yeah.
in the United
Increases
States with all the NBA
visibility.
teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is hilarious because for the longest time, going and playing professional basketball in Europe and other countries was like the alternative to NCAA, where kids are like, well, I want to get paid to play basketball. Like, I'm going to go play in Europe, or I'm going to go play in Australia, like
Yeah.
Brandon Jennings and LaMelo Ball did. So I'm kind of looking at Illinois and I'm like, one, are we going to see more teams recruiting in Europe? Because we know sports is like every league is a copycat league. We talk about it a lot with the NFL, but with Illinois getting to the Final Four for the first time since I think it was like the 90s or early 2000s.
Mm.
I think like, maybe not like the Dukes and UConns of the world, but like, more not blue bloods, but more like mid-tier programs. Like, do you look at Illinois' success and you're like, well, they have Keaton Wagler. They kind of struck gold with
Yeah.
him, considering that he was a 3-star prospect, but the rest of their roster is made up with like older, smarter,
Yeah.
what they call like pass and shoot bigs from Europe. And then also, I'm kind of wondering, like, are there other inefficiencies that are not being exploited by the NCAA? Are there pros who have been playing multiple years of basketball in Africa we should be looking at? Are there other European leagues? Should we be going to like the Asian Pacific area and just rating, like, where can't we pull guys from to play college basketball is my question. And then the last thought here, this is I cheated because this is for Michigan and Arizona. I feel like Michigan versus Arizona is the national championship, and that whoever wins that game is going to beat the winner of UConn, Illinois. Michigan and Arizona are now number 3 and number 4 all time in KenPom, respectively. Number 1 is 1999 Duke, and number 2 was actually 2025 Duke last season, who I know they didn't win the championship, but really, like, what KenPom does, you can't really compare KenPom like year to year and look at the net efficiency metric and say like this is the greatest team of all time. But what it does do is it shows you how much better than the field a team is. And what this is saying is that like Arizona and Michigan are just way better than anybody else in the field this year. And it said that about Duke before they got eliminated too, and they kind of fell off after that UConn game. But this was always the argument for any of those teams to win the championship, is like, look at KenPom. It's saying that Michigan, Arizona, and Duke are like just head and shoulders better above everybody else. And for Duke, I think in large part that was because they had Cam Boozer.
Mhm.
Michigan and Arizona are much more complete, much more well-rounded
Yeah.
teams than Duke was.
I mean,
And
Duke had 2 games earlier in the tournament that they definitely could have lost.
Yeah.
Really. But through the power of Cameron Boozer,
Through the power of Carlos Boozer's balls, they won. That's a shirt. Put that on a shirt. I mean, even just eye test wise, Arizona and Michigan have looked like absolute machines going through this entire tournament. Like, I don't think the final score of any of their games has even been particularly close. So I'm very excited for that game on Saturday. Like UConn, Illinois, sure, that's fun. I think like UConn versus Arizona or Michigan will be, it'll set some record for most watched national championship game in a long time. The UConn versus Duke game topped out at, I think, 19 million viewers, which was like a huge number for the NCAA tournament. So, but I don't know. Do you feel that way? Whoever comes out of Michigan, Arizona is winning, or do you give UConn and their witch magic
honestly,
a chance?
That was kind of my thought heading into the tournament, is that like these are the two best teams. And that's the way it's played out. So, broken clock, right? Twice a day, right? There's been nothing in this tournament that has indicated otherwise. I don't think there's been any blips with either of these teams other than like maybe a slow start before throttling a team in the second half.
The fun thing about Michigan and Arizona too is they're both anchored by 7-footers in the middle. So you're going to have, I think, a dude who's 7'2" versus a dude who's 7'1" in the middle. And although they don't have the super high level NBA prospects, like top 5 guys, they still have Lendenborg for Michigan and Burries for Arizona. And both of those guys have had absolutely phenomenal tournaments so far. So I think that game is an absolute banger. And that's basically your championship. But like the UConn Black Magic struck again versus Duke. They started like 1 of 18 from 3 and then hit 4 of their last 5 to close the gap. And then obviously the big game winner from almost from midcourt from that kid. I honestly, like, that shot in that play, I kind of look at that more as like when it first happened, I texted you they needed to fire they needed to fire Caden Boozer into the sun. I was like, you can't. And I still do believe like you can't do that, because basically the only way you lose that game is to do exactly what he did on that play. But I lean more towards like excellent play by UConn than I do horrible play by Duke. Because I see it. I understand what he was doing, but I still look at it and I'm like, listen, even if you get fouled and miss both free throws, the shot for UConn is way, way harder.
Yeah.
When you have time to set up and like they got to go the whole length of the court. The only way you can really lose that game is doing exactly what you just did. So it's tough.
Yeah. We can acknowledge that the mistake was made there. And like still, someone for UConn needs to make the hustle play and get the ball. Then someone needs to get the ball to someone in position to score. And then they have to make the shot. So, like, a very unfortunate turn of events for Duke and more specifically, Caden Boozer. Right. There was a hell of a lot that UConn needed to pull off even with that happening to make it happen, and they did.
Not to mention that they came back from being down 15 at halftime and then down 19 at one point in the second half. Like, everybody wants to point at one play and be like, wow, that was the play that lost Duke the game. And there's a lot of plays
what about the rest of the second half?
You need to, like, a lot of plays you need to make or not make to blow a 19-point lead in 20 minutes of basketball. In a way, I know it's not as severe, but it reminds me of 28-3, where everybody wants to point at one play, and it's like, no, like literally every play had to go perfectly, and if one play just goes differently, we're probably talking
just
about
gets like one first down in that second half early on, like the game is over.
And in this case, like if 1 or 2 plays go differently, we're talking about Duke in Illinois and not UConn.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that's that. I mean, but that's what UConn does. That's why they're so
Yeah.
great, and that's why they're the best basketball program of our lifetime. So, that is it for college basketball. We'll be watching the Final Four games this week. We'll talk about whoever wins a little bit next week, but fun March Madness coverage. I had a lot of fun talking about it with you the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And now it is time for the moment that you have all waited for. NFL draft coverage is back on Fouled Out, baby. Starting with the biggest questions of the 2026 NFL draft. These are, I haven't been doing as much draft research lately as Matt has, and you've texted me some stuff and asked me some questions, and I'm like, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. I don't know. I feel like the later your team gets eliminated in the NFL, the harder it is to get yourself into draft mode.
Like in January. So
yeah, you're ready before the season ended. You're like, do you think we could get Caleb Downs at like 14 or 15 or wherever you guys are? When you lose the Super Bowl, though, it's like, not only did you just lose the biggest game of the year, but also you have the second to last pick in the draft. So like when I'm doing mocks and stuff, I'm like, God, who's even going to be there at 31 for my team? It's not like the last 2 years where we had the number 3 and the number 4 pick, and I'm all into the big prospects. And I've been doing research since week 8 because my team sucked and all of that. So I would say the NFL season was way, way, way more fun for me this year. And I wouldn't trade that, but it's been harder for me to like get myself into draft mode. So I started doing it, and as I started doing it and looking over the draft, these are the first 4 questions that really like stood out to me. And they're mostly like first round things. And as we go through the next couple podcasts, we'll talk more about like, controversial prospects and gambling props and the my guys, and we'll get more into like the later rounds of the draft. But the very first thing that stood out to me is actually something you and I have talked about, because it is the very, very first pick in the draft. And we have known for quite some time that the Raiders will be selecting Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana, with the first pick in the draft. The Raiders will also take the full 10 minutes of the clock to do so.
Of course.
We know this to be true. Although the pick's been in for, I don't know, 2 months?
It's free ad time.
Man, it pisses me off so much. I'm like, we could just make this so much faster. We could get so much more done in this time span we have.
We wouldn't need the draft to be 3 days long.
I want to ask you this first as a yes or no, because I think it's way harder to answer that way. Yes or no, do you think Fernando Mendoza should be the first overall pick in the NFL draft?
I assume I'm going to get a chance to explain why later.
No, you only say yes or no, and then we move on to question number 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go with yes.
Okay, I agree, but there's obviously like a lot of nuance, and that's what I want to talk to you about. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, should he be like, just like first look, should he be the first guy in this draft? And I had to think about it.
There are some guys in this draft that unequivocally are going to be better players than him in the NFL, and very well might end up being the best or one of the best players at their positions in the NFL. Like, their floors and ceilings are just kind of that high, barring the truly unforeseeable. But what it came down to for me is you never know when you're gonna be in this position again to pick number 1 and get your guy, or in that top 3 or 4 where you can like really make sure you get one, right? I know that there is this expectation that quarterbacks in the 2027 draft are going to be much better than the ones in this draft, and that may be true, very well may not. But like, even if they are, what happens if you get pick number 7 and there's 3 teams ahead of you that also are looking at picking a quarterback. 2024 draft kind of sets unrealistic expectations of how many viable quarterbacks are going to be in a draft.
Yeah,
And
at the
if
same
you have a
time,
chance to get
though,
one, you have to get one.
at the same time, though, I think that 2024 draft outlines exactly what you're talking about, where even if it is a loaded draft class, you don't want to be the Falcons or the Vikings in that draft.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there needing a quarterback, and there's quarterback needy teams ahead of you. And it's like we know the Giants tried to trade 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds to get Drake May in that draft. And the Patriots are like, no, we need a quarterback. We're taking the guy that's here.
They tried to go up and get Cam Ward too.
Yeah, well, this is the thing is like people, and this is one of the last questions I want to talk about, so I don't want to step on it too much, but there are rumors that like there are multiple teams in this draft who are punting on quarterback, and they're like, we're waiting for next year because the draft is going to be way better. Last year at this time, Cam Ward and Jackson Dart were the only 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round of the draft. And people were saying, well, we're going to wait for the 26 class because that has Arch Manning and Lenora Sellers and Ty Simpson. And like there was like 6 or 7 guys people would name that were all going to be first round picks in this draft. And none of them were named Fernando Mendoza. And now we're sitting here and Fernando Mendoza is going number 1. And guess what's going on with those other 6 guys? They're not even in the draft. Yeah. They all went back to college.
They went back to college because they didn't play well enough that they would have been picked that high. Which means they haven't shown that they're that level yet.
Yeah.
So you're gambling on them being something that they haven't shown they are yet. When you could have a guy that remains to be seen whether or not he should or should not start right away, but like by most accounts feels like he should trend towards being a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL.
I do think that this situation is a little Cam Ward-esque, where he will be drafted first overall because he's the best quarterback in the class, not because he is the best player. I agree with you. There are numerous players at various positions that will be better pros at their position than Fernando Mendoza will be at his. The Fernando Mendoza, the concerns for me, and the reason I think that in a vacuum, he's not deserving of being the number 1 overall pick in an NFL draft. He doesn't have, in my opinion, that kind of talent. He's not going to be that kind of pro. I think he can be a very good NFL quarterback. I don't think he can be an elite NFL quarterback. And the reason being, he's very accurate. When everything is on time, he's awesome. Like if, the offense is humming, everything's on time. But I do feel like he's the type of quarterback you have to have a good offense around. Like you need good pass protection. You need good offensive skill players for him to be successful.
I mentioned whether he should or should not start right away. Man, Indiana ran a shit ton of RPOs. More than probably half of what will ever be run by any NFL team. Percentage-wise. Not to mention, like, another thing that all quarterbacks have to kind of struggle with coming into the NFL is that they're plays that pretty much get taken out of the playbook because the hashes move in the NFL. They kind of have to relearn like fundamentals of how an offense works because for some reason we decide that there should be these crazy huge rule differences between pro and college that make it harder for guys to transition.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote down the RPO thing in my notes too. So I'm not concerned about that being like a hindrance to him becoming a good NFL quarterback,
I don't think
but
it's a hindrance long term. I think it's a hindrance his first
yeah,
year, maybe year and
that's
a
what I
half.
that's what I wrote down as well, is that his development might take a little bit longer
Yeah.
because that they ran so much like quick read RPO stuff at
Yep.
Indiana. Also, like I was thinking about whether or not my big fish small pond theory applies with Fernando Mendoza, because I'm like, well, Indiana did become very good out of nowhere, but I also think saying it's big fish small pond, where like you guys know my theory is like, oh, if a really like a team that's traditionally not good all of a sudden becomes really good, I want players from that team. I think that like saying it's big fish small pond is discrediting Indiana. I think Indiana might just be a really fucking good football program now.
Well, I was
Like
gonna
maybe the
say
best one.
that as of right now, it's probably still a pond, but I think we're looking at the wrong person for the big fish.
Oh god, you're starting to get
Signetti.
into. Oh yeah, Signetti for sure. I thought you were going to talk about another player from Indiana who's in this draft who is on my guys
uh,
list. I don't want to get
no,
into it.
but we may have been using a word that hints at who it is.
Do 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 do. Clue. We're dropping the clues. So yeah, my big thing with Fernando Mendoza is not the RPOs. It's not that like I agree it's going to be a big transition, especially going into a Clint Kubiak offense that wants to run the ball and then have you turn your back on the defense for play action. I I just don't think he has like the elite upside that like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May or Jaden Daniels has, because he is not going to be good at making plays out of structure in the NFL. We actually saw, I forget what the metric is on Fernando Mendoza, sack rate to turnover worthy play rate of like when you get pressure on him, his sack rate is like way worse than any quarterback taken in the first round was in college in like 20 plus years, I think it is. And it's because like he doesn't have elite pocket mobility. He cannot do those like off platform throws. He doesn't have the massive arm a lot of these guys have that become elite prospects. Like the really top end athleticism isn't there. He's going to be more of a guy who's successful because he can play within the structure of a good offense.
It's tough on him because there's limited guys in the NFL that he can study to figure out how to do well with that, because the only couple guys that I can think of that like pocket movement wise that he should probably be studying are Jared Goff and Matt Stafford. Like that, it's very like pretty much every team outside of those couple of teams go for more mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was going to say that my comp for him is like Jared Goff. Basically, is like we've seen in Detroit the last couple of years, is that like when things are
I don't think he's got Goff's arm talent.
No, well, that's the problem. This is the problem. But I mean, more of a comp of like when things
style.
are going well, and when things are humming in Detroit, Jared Goff looks like he might be the best quarterback in the NFL. Like he's having like massive games. He's throwing for 400. It's awesome. But we've also seen the Jared Goff implosion games of when the protection isn't as good, when things aren't going as smoothly. Jared Goff is not digging you out of that hole in a way that some of the really elite quarterbacks, the Mahomes and the Allens of the world do. And that like that's the difference between being a really good NFL quarterback and being an elite one, which earlier I mentioned I saw a comp today that almost made me black out. NFL.com has Fernando Mendoza's pro comp as Joe Burrow. Yeah. I passed out for a second when I read that. He's not Joe Burrow. I think he's more of like the Jared Goff, maybe like a Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, I think would be like a more fair, like he's going to be a pocket guy, but like he doesn't really have the arm talent of any of those guys.
No, he's got like the Jared Goff like kind of play style, but with like a little bit of that like Josh Allen sugar rush in him. Because we've seen him like when he does take off running, just like absolutely throw his body through an absolute thresher. Like
Yeah, this is the thing though, is like some of the things that made him really good in college like that
are
are
going to get
things
him
where
killed.
the next level, Tom Brady and Clint Kubiak, or Clint Kubiak are going to be like, no, mm-mm. And like Fernando Mendoza has decent straight line speed, but he's
Yeah.
not shifty. He's not like the Patrick Mahomes, like just slightly quicker than anybody that's chasing him down. You know, he doesn't have like a wiggle to him. If he gets loose, he can make plays with his feet that I like, but like he's not an improviser. He's more of like a high level game manager would be my comp for him. And he just doesn't I think he has a good floor. I think he will be a good quarterback in the next level. I don't think he'll be a great quarterback, which is why I say in a vacuum he doesn't have the makings of a number 1 overall pick. But I think one thing that does not get talked about enough with him is that he is going to be a massive culture reset for a team that
Oh,
desperately needs it.
absolutely.
Desperately needs
Yeah.
it. Because like this kid is, and I don't know him, so just from what I've seen, like leader,
Yes.
loved in that locker room. He is a dude who had, I think, like either no, I want to say he had like no D1 offers coming out of
Mm-hmm.
high school. And then he was going to like, I want to say he was going to Yale. And then at the last minute, Cal came in and said, like, yeah, you can come be our backup quarterback. And he went to Cal, eventually transfers to Indiana. And like the ascension we've seen from where he was coming out of high school to being the Heisman winner, national championship winner, best team in the country, like that ascension tells me that he is going to work his ass off to
Yeah.
be good. Like I
And
just think like personality wise, he won't fail.
yeah, maybe not as crazy, but I can see a moment that feels similar to like Stafford's like mic'd up Browns moment with the separated shoulder, right? Like I can see him just somehow winning a game, beat up as hell. Probably shouldn't beat up there. Probably not a separated shoulder, but like just winning out of sheer determination because we've already seen that's just kind of how he's wired.
Yeah. Well, I think back to that moment. I forget which game it was. Oh, maybe it was Big Ten championship where they interviewed him after the game, and he was just like going crazy. He's like, "Yeah, I want to thank God, woo!" And everybody was like, "God, this guy is so like corny and creepy." I watched that and I was like, "I love that shit.
Yeah,
That I want that
like
guy
he
in my
he
locker room."
genuinely seemed like he was on cocaine. Like
Well, he was crying after the national
yeah,
championship. He's super emotional. Like
yeah,
I want a dude who cares,
yeah,
you know? And like after the game is the perfect time to let all your emotions out. He didn't do that on the field. He was always cool and calm and collected even while he was
yeah,
playing poorly in some games. So I like that. I want that dude in my locker room. I think he's going to be a good leader and something the Raiders desperately need and have desperately needed for a long
yeah.
time.
I mean, I think there are few teams that need it as badly as the Raiders do.
Yeah. They've never had one. Honestly, like Rich Gannon when they went to the Super Bowl in the early
Yeah,
2000s, right? Like it's just not the it's so weird because like the peace, love and God aspect in a Raiders uniform is just so like polar opposite of everything NFL history has ever told us about the Raiders organization. But I do think it's going to be good for
that's
them.
not the Raiders
So,
I know.
yeah. Question number 2. what do we do with all of these premium players that play non-premium positions? So this draft is weird because almost all of the best players in the draft do not play positions that are highly valued by NFL teams. So we have Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, who a lot of boards will tell you is the very best player in this draft. Jeremiyah Love, running back from Notre Dame. We've talked a lot about first round running backs on this podcast, but he is a hell of a running back at the same time. And then you get into guys like Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, who, like, Sonny Styles just absolutely fucking demolished the combine this year. Like, just, I think he was like the fourth most athletic linebacker in combine history from the Math Bomb guy that we like and we'll talk about. The raw athletic score was like the fourth best of any linebacker ever. He's an off-ball linebacker, which is not a super, like, quote unquote super valuable position. Arvell Reese is also an off-ball linebacker, but some people think he's going to be an edge, which, you know, we talk about in the next question, but I don't know. So, like, to me, the three best prospects in this draft, Downs, Love, Styles, don't play positions that typically get drafted in the top 10. Honestly, a running back is like hit or miss, but usually it's not. Caleb Downs is like particularly interesting to me because safety is, I don't know what your opinion is, but probably the most devalued position in the NFL.
Yeah.
And he is the best one we've seen come out in the draft since Ed Reed, Brian Dawkins. Like, just as a prospect, Kyle Hamilton was up there as well, but like Caleb Downs is probably a better prospect than Kyle Hamilton. The thing with safeties is, like, so Caleb Downs is probably going to be a top 10 pick, which is going to mean that he is, like, automatically, just because of the rookie slot money, he's automatically like one of the top 10 to 15 paid safeties in the entire league. And having Caleb Downs, I think, is going to be a very good thing for an NFL team. But from a team building perspective, by drafting a safety that high, you are automatically giving up the rookie advantage. So, like, we talk about this a lot. The biggest advantage you can have in any sport is having a great quarterback on a rookie deal, because, like, it's so under market value for a great quarterback that, like, you can build out the rest of your roster with all this extra money that you won't have when you have to pay a great quarterback. You can say the same thing to a lesser degree for, like, a left tackle, an edge rusher, and now a wide receiver, which actually, on average, wide receivers have now taken over left tackle as the third most expensive position. So, like,
thanks, Seattle.
Yeah, good job, guys. These are Puka Nacua is trying to not make it worse. He's trying to give the Rams a discount right now. But, like, so you can say the same thing about Love as a running back, and Styles as an off-ball linebacker, but, like, to a lesser degree, because those positions are more highly paid than a safety. But it's like this weird math you have to do where it's like, okay, if I'm the Jets, I have the number 2 pick in the draft. Caleb Downs is the best overall player because Fernando Mendoza is getting picked first. So I'm like, Caleb Downs is the best player in this draft. But I can't draft a safety at 2. So, like, are the Jets going to pick an edge who's not as good at edge as Caleb Downs is at safety just because they can't pick a safety at 2? Is that the right thing to do?
I mean, I don't think anything is black and white. Right? There is nuance to it. The thing that makes it tough for the Jets here is they're kind of set at tackle. Right? That's where you would pivot to. So you're not taking a tackle. There's not a quarterback to take. Unless you really want to pay a premium on Ty Simpson. At that point, you look at the roster and you kind of just you really do have to take the top player on your board.
The age-old advice would be take the best player available. But the history of the NFL has told us that BPA gets thrown out the window when we're paying a safety a fucking shitload of money, especially one that's never played it down in the NFL. And as good as we all think Caleb Downs will be, it's not proven yet. We don't know for sure. Drafting a safety at 2, I think, would absolutely blow people's minds.
Of any player that you take, right?
Yeah,
but you're always taking a risk.
But if you draft a safety at 2 and it fails, like if you draft him at 2, he basically has to be an all-pro level safety to justify the contract.
Yeah,
unless you're willing to reset the safety market, which they might be, because the Raiders were just like, fuck it, we're resetting the center market. Which I think will be worth it, actually, with Fernando Mendoza at quarterback. But like, if you're the Jets, are you just like, yeah, we're just going to reset the safety market. We have a shitload more needs that we have to like build out this roster, but we're fine giving up our rookie advantage because this guy is so like talented. For the record, if any team was in a position to do it, it would be the Jets, because they have a shitload of first-round picks. They have 2 this year, 3 next year.
Yep.
And then multiple seconds the next couple of years as well.
Yeah.
So, like, you're going to have a lot of dudes on rookie contracts, assuming you don't have to trade those picks to go up and get the quarterback you want next year. But I don't know if the Jets of all teams are an innovative enough franchise to be the team to do this. Like, if the Jets do it, I'm going to be like, they fucked up because it's the Jets and there's no other option.
Honestly, it doesn't matter what they do. I'm going to be like, oh, this is going to end badly. Even if I thought it would have been a good pick before they did it.
Yeah, I hope they pay a premium for Ty Simpson. I'm going to have like all these my guys and the Jets are going to pick him. I'm going to be like, no, he's not a my guy anymore. He's a your guy. Like he's off my list. He's a Jets guy. Can't be a my guy.
Yeah. I would say, unless you have an explicit need at tackle or quarterback, edge rusher, you got to just take the best player. You do. It doesn't matter what the position is if they're a game changer. There is a night and day difference in the way the Lions defense functions when Kirby Joseph is on the field and when he's gone. Because quarterbacks are terrified to let go of the ball because that's all he does is take the ball away.
Yeah. But what round did the Lions get Kirby Joseph in?
They get him in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing that people look at with, and we can say the same thing about Jeremiyah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, is like, can you find someone who can be 80% of that guy in round 3 or round 4?
How many Kirby Josephs are you finding in the 3rd round? Right. Like that's.
But you know how many of the good
problem.
Safeties? Yeah. You know how many of the good NFL safeties were drafted in the top 10? 0. It never happened. It hasn't. Yeah. I mean, if it has happened, it was before I started studying the draft. So it's been a while. Kyle Hamilton went like 14 to the Ravens. Was it 14, 15, something like that?
I feel like Ramsey actually might have come in as a safety.
Yeah, but he's a corner in the NFL.
I think Miles Jack did too, who then turned into a linebacker. So,
okay, so Sean Taylor was drafted number 5 in 2004, and Eric Berry was drafted Eric Berry was drafted number 5 in 2010. Actually, and we are. Oh, there's more. Wow. Other notable top 10 selections: Michael Huff, drafted number 7 in 2006. Dante Whitner, number 8 in 2006, and Roy Williams, number 8 in 2002. So there have been some. Minkah Fitzpatrick, pick 11 in 2018. There's a good one. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Kyle Hamilton was drafted like 14th or something like that. I guess Minkah Fitzpatrick was drafted 11. So I think the teams that drafted those guys would tell you it was worth it.
Yeah.
You know, Eric Berry, Sean Taylor, like We are talking
Yeah.
about a safety prospect in Caleb Downs on the level of a Sean Taylor and an
he
Eric
is
Berry.
truly a do-it-all safety.
Yeah,
And
he's very good.
Yes.
I don't think the Jets have the balls to
Yeah.
be the franchise to do it.
I do think the wrong Ohio State player is being mocked to them, but
Yeah.
Nope.
Draft him.
Yeah.
Draft Arvell Reese, play him at edge, see how it goes.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Even Sonny Styles makes more sense.
Yeah, but I think like the thing that's compounding this is question number 3. Kind of like tying these things together. Question 3, this edge class is extremely deep.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen estimates that like up to 17 edges could be taken in the first 3 rounds of this draft. However, I think there is a question of whether any of the edges in this class are elite. Like, we're going to have a lot of good ones, a lot of contributors.
Do you mean,
but
are they an elite
elite
prospect, or can they be elite? Because those are two different questions.
Yeah, the former.
Yeah.
Are they an elite prospect? Would you, Matt, take one of these edges over Caleb Downs? This is the problem the Jets are facing.
Yeah.
Is that not only are the best players in this draft non-premium positions, but the premium positions in this draft are not that good.
We talked about it a little bit when we were talking NBA. Like, it's so hard for me to split hairs when I have guys so close. But I will say, like, so right now, that top tier includes Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, and Ruben Bain.
I know you like Ruben Bain. That's why I brought this up.
That people are absolutely fucking insane for trying to throw out everything that their eyes have seen because of arm length measurement gate. Like, he very well might actually have like an extra inch on his arms based off of how bad the measurements have reportedly been from the combine, because there's been a lot of reported issues from that. But like, it's not like he didn't play against long-armed tackles. Like, he beat everybody's ass.
Yes, and as a fan of a team that drafted somebody with short arms and someone who insisted that it wouldn't matter, I would tell you I do not want my team to draft another guy with short arms right now. I'm not. It terrifies me.
I think you're overreacting a little bit. I don't think he's maybe as elite as we thought he could be those first few weeks. And 2, there's a pretty big difference when you get to be the one that's attacking.
Yeah. But also,
who else had short arms? A man named Aiden Hutchinson.
But also, could we be very clear about something? We're not talking about short arms. We're talking about literally the shortest arms ever. We're talking about the bottom 1 percentile of arm length for edges. If the measurements are
those
accurate.
Measurements are accurate.
Yeah.
Which, with how many different players there have been reported issues with those measurements, I'm going to say where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, but all I'm going to say is, as someone who looked at Will Campbell last year and was like, fuck the arm length thing, it doesn't matter. He's great. He played great tackle in the SEC, the toughest conference to play in. I'm here saying maybe not fuck it. Like last year I was like, fuck arm length, it doesn't matter. Now I'm like, I'm kind of like paying attention to the length of the dude's arms in this draft. And if those measurements are accurate, Ruben Bain has the shortest arms of any edge ever in NFL draft history ever. But like I also kind of hope the Jets draft him, because how fun would it be to have two little dudes with tiny arms fighting in the trenches 2 games a year? Because Tiny Arm Will is our tackle of the future. That's what they tell me. I don't know if I agree.
No, I don't think those measurements are accurate. I don't think it's going to be, his arms are probably short, but not like so incredibly short that he is in the 1%.
They're not like hands on shoulders like the combine would have you believe.
But 2, like if they were truly an issue, then like find it for me on tape.
Yeah.
If you can't find it for me on tape.
Said the same thing about Will Campbell last year. Because you couldn't find it on tape.
Yeah. And like before he got hurt, the only guy that really took care of him was Myles fucking Garrett.
Well, and Max XXX Crosby, but like, still,
like 2 premier pass rushers who were going up against a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see when Will comes back. All I'm saying is like, I am more wary of it this year than I was last year. But like Mason Graham's a good example too. They said that he didn't have long enough arms to fight in the trenches, and he's been good, although it's a very different position.
Also, like, there were a lot of people who truly didn't think Aaron Donald could amount to anything because he was too small.
Yeah.
And it turned out that his violence and athleticism proved to be basically unstoppable, which is what we have seen from Ruben Bain on tape.
The interesting thing about Ruben Bain is that you just brought up like the key comp of Aaron Donald. Not that he's going to be Aaron Donald, but his shoulder measurement is as broad as Aaron Donald's was. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that helped Aaron Donald make up for having shorter arms was having broader shoulders. So his arms don't have to be as long, because they're still like, his reach is still the same as somebody with longer arms because he has broader shoulders. Yeah. If that makes sense to people. So, and Ruben Bain is in that same mold.
Yeah, but I would be more concerned if he tested poorly, but he's a great athlete. And when you're that good of an athlete and you play with the violence that he does, like, you're just going to have the advantage. He's going to have the power to be able to go through guys. I'm sure he's going to continue to develop more moves, but when I see a guy that is that dominant, like, I'm not going to second guess that. And we keep getting told time after time, like, if they aren't producing in college, then why are we expecting them to produce at the NFL level when it comes to pass rushers? And then we see a guy that racks up like, what was it, 14 sacks this past year? Close to that, maybe 12. And we're like, now we want to be like, but I don't think that matters because his arms are short.
Yeah. But I want to go back to my question to you then, because you obviously have Ruben Bain Jr. graded high.
Yeah.
Is he good enough to justify passing up on Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs if you're the Jets? Do you have him that high on your board?
I mean, like I said, they're all in that same tier for me. I wouldn't fault them for picking any one of those 3 players, but you also kind of have to take into account, especially when you're drafting guys, it's like, what kind of scheme do you want to run? Like, what are the players that you need to, build around in that scheme? Yeah. So.
Yeah, I saw Brandon Graham as a comp for Ruben Bain today, and I was like, I kind of like that one. But like overall, back to the initial question, are any of the edges elite? So you have Ruben Bain in the elite tier.
Yeah, and that's it.
I take it. Yeah, the interesting thing with these edges is that the class is really deep. Like I said, 17 guys will probably get drafted in the first 3 rounds, which is a ton.
Yeah.
but it seems like at the top there's questions about everyone. So Bane, it's all the stuff we just went over. It's the arm length, basically. You have
Bailey
David
is
Bailey.
a speed rusher who constantly runs himself out of run fits.
Yeah, but also his size, and there was a quote from an AFC executive that said his size and toughness are questions.
Yeah.
But also, you want to talk about a dude that produced.
He did?
He was in, he had the best production score of any edge rusher. He had a production score of 98. I forget how many sacks he had. It was like 17 or something like that.
Yeah.
Last year at Texas Tech.
Yeah, but like, he is a guy whose floor is kind of a designated pass rusher, which every team needs. So
that's kind of the thing, is like, he's a guy who, is he just gonna be a pass rusher at the next level? Like, is he in, when you're drafting this high, because he's a dude who's in consideration for number 2 with the Jets.
Yeah.
When you're drafting this high, you need a dude who can play all 3 downs, and he may not be a 3-down player at the next level.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
You know who's excellent against the run?
Ruben Bain.
Ruben Bain.
Yeah. How did I guess? Wow, that was a shocker. I think David Bailey can be good at the next level too, but then you get into guys like Arvell Reese. So like, this is another draft conversation we have had, is there have been some rumors the Jets would consider Arvell Reese at 2 because he is an off-ball linebacker who people think they can move to edge, a la Micah Parsons. That's a whole, like, drafting a guy number 2 to have him play a position he's never played before
I don't see the appeal. I just don't. Like,
yeah, I understand, like,
drafting an experiment number 2 overall. Like, like, let's call that what it is. Because when you say it like that, then it really does seem like a crazy idea. Because we don't know that he can be a productive edge rusher. He has certainly had some success rushing the passer, but it is certainly far different when you are doing that full time. While I think he's a very talented player and should certainly probably go in not just the first round, probably the first half of the first round, I don't understand why we're even talking about him in the top 5.
It's funny because most outlets actually don't have him as an edge. They have him as a linebacker still.
Yeah.
And I think he could be a really good linebacker, but like, he's the second best linebacker coming out of Ohio State in this draft. I don't have him on the same level as a Sonny Styles. No. Just for the record, David Bailey, 14.5 sacks last season, and also 19.5 tackles for a loss.
Yeah.
Both of those things. That's a lot of production.
Yes, he is all gamble, and when he hits big, and when he is out of his run fit, he is out of his run fit.
The other team hits big.
Yeah.
So then you start getting into the other guys, the Cassius Howell, what is his name? Keldrick?
Keldrick Falk.
Keldrick Falk. Yeah, I was gonna mess that up. TJ Parker. Like, it's funny because like, there's really not as many of these. Like, normally I feel like with edge rushers we see like, tons of athleticism, not as much production. Like Shamar Stewart.
Yeah.
Last year it was just like massive athleticism score, 0 production. This year it's like a lot of dudes who had a lot of production in college, where the athleticism is the questionable part. But they're like good, you know.
Well,
they're productive guys.
It's funny because TJ Parker was basically universally a top 5 pick coming into this season, before the entirety of the Clemson team underperformed, not just him. Keldrick Falk is in this weird situation where it's like, he was really good last year, and then Auburn had a scheme change, and they played him more as like a 4-eye or 3-tech most of the year, moving him inside a little bit more. And If you like look at his production by years, I wonder how different his draft stock would be if you just changed the order of what he produced this year and swapped it with last year's.
Yeah. So it's an interesting class. I got like to put a bow on it. If you're the Jets at number 2, we know Fernando Mendoza is going number 1, so the draft kind of starts at 2. Who are you taking right now? April 1st.
If there's an option, I'm trading back.
I don't think anybody else wants to be in your position.
I know.
That's the problem.
Like their current defensive coordinator for this start this season, at least, given until Woody Johnson decides to fire everyone again, is former Lions safety coach Brian Duker. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that him working under former high-profile defensive back Aaron Glenn is probably going to scheme their defense around their defensive backs.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, I think that the most valuable player for them is probably safety.
Yeah. See, I think that this is like the interesting conversation about the NFL draft, and that's why I lined up these first 3 questions together, is like, people are like, oh, this NFL draft doesn't have enough drama. We know who's going number 1. It's not a big deal, blah, blah. I don't think there's anybody in like the top 5 of this draft that feels good about being in the top 5 of this draft besides the Raiders. Like, I think the Raiders are happy taking Fernando Mendoza.
The Cardinals might actually feel okay.
Yeah. They're going to take probably
they're gonna get the tackle.
But then we could have the same conversation about the tackle we just had about the edges, is like,
for sure, but they're going to get their pick.
Yeah, well, so. I mean, I think like a lot of these guys will get these picks, but like, or get the people they want. But my point is more that like the 3 best players in this draft, or like the 3 guys who are going to kind of universally be seen as elite draft prospects, are a safety, a running back, and an off-ball linebacker. Positions that teams in the top 5 don't want to take because it's too much money for those positions. Yeah. And so like, I mean, I don't know. I heard the Giants might just take Jeremiyah Love and just be happy, but I'm like, okay, so you have Tyrone Tracy, Cam Scattaboo coming back, and you're going to take a running back when you have other needs on your roster. Like, they would be a team I'd be interested in Caleb Downs for, but like, I don't know that the teams 2 through 5 necessarily feel great about who they're going to pick in this draft. Like the Cards, they might take a tackle and be happy with it, but is it going to be an elite tackle? Is that a tackle that's worth a top 3 pick? These are conversations we can keep having.
What is that? Is it Paris Johnson?
Paris Johnson Jr.
Yeah. If you're happy with Paris Johnson Jr., I don't think you need that elite prospect. Get a decent pass protector at right tackle and someone who can win in the run game. That's really all you need out of your 2 tackles. Like,
yeah, that's fair. So that's an interesting thing I'm keeping an eye on right now. The last question I had for you, last big question of the draft, is how much does the 2027 class affect this draft? We've talked about this, and I know that we've kind of already talked about how this is a flawed thought process, but I want you to think about the teams I'm talking about here. There have already been reports that the Jets, Browns, and Dolphins are all going to pass on quarterback this year, with their plans being, we're going to get our quarterback in the 2027 draft. The Dolphins, that's if Malik Willis doesn't work out for them. Yeah. But the Jets and the Browns specifically, they're like, we're not taking a Ty Simpson. And it's interesting because all 3 of those
Browns
teams
aren't all in on Shooter Sanders.
all three of those teams have multiple picks in the first round of this draft.
Yeah.
They all have 2 first. And none of them are willing to take Ty Simpson. So Ty Simpson probably going to fall out of the first round, probably not go in first round in this draft. And I think there's a debate to be had about whether he's a first round prospect or not. But
maybe, but also how comfortable is Pittsburgh rolling the dice that Aaron Rodgers is just going to come back?
yeah. Yeah, I think there are other teams that could sneak in there as well, but like the point being that it's already being reported that teams are like, hey, the 2027 quarterback class is absolutely loaded.
Oh,
we're just going to wait for that.
Yeah.
Because they look at like Arch Manning, Dante Moore, Julian Sayin, like there's a lot of guys that are coming out next year, but like we said, this is the same conversation we were having last year where it's like, oh yeah, Titans are going to take Cam Ward this year, but oh, next year, watch out. And it's like Fernando Mendoza now and nobody else. So teams are already saying like, yeah, I'm going to wait till next year. But I also think you could say that about other premium positions where like next year's wide receiver class is fucking insane, led by Jeremiah Smith out of Ohio State, who's like the elitist of the elite wide receiver prospects, probably like the best one we've seen since Calvin Johnson. But also like Coleman, the kid from Texas, Ryan Williams from Alabama.
I feel like we're forgetting how elite of a prospect Jamar Chase was. It was kind of stupid that I mean, there were actually a lot of good players in that draft, but
there are, but
crazy
like,
to think that 5 guys went before him. So
this is how highly thought of Jeremiah Smith is, though.
Yes,
that like he's
insane.
He is really, really up there.
He's been their best player every year he's been on their roster.
Yeah,
like,
and that includes years where they had like, then they had Egbuka.
Yeah.
With Jeremiah Smith, they had other like really elite wide receivers. They had Carnell Tate, who's in this draft, and they're just like, none of these guys are as good as Jeremiah. But so like quarterbacks,
offensive player, but
quarterbacks are going to get pushed down the board because teams are like, yeah, we don't need a quarterback. We're waiting till next season. I also wonder if like wide receivers could get pushed down the board because we could say the same thing about wide receivers to maybe an even bigger degree that I said about edges of like, it's a relatively deep wide receiver class, not as deep as edge, but there are no elite receivers in this class. And I do wonder if like you're the Browns and you're at 6, you're like, do we take Carnell Tate here or do we grab one of these edges and like next year we'll use, we'll get a wide receiver and a quarterback. Like maybe some of these guys get pushed down the board a little bit because next year's class is so much better or thought to be better at this time.
Yeah.
That like teams could just be like, yeah, we'll wait.
Some of it is kind of getting in semantics, right? Because Jordan Tyson, that's the other big name. I think that is the one that we are most likely to see air quotes drop. It's not going to be, you're not seeing him drop because of next year's draft class. You're seeing him drop because he never plays football because he's always hurt. So then it comes back to like, okay, well, how many first round quality wide receivers do we think are in this draft? Maybe 2. You could maybe argue 3, but like, outside of having Calvin Johnson and Jamar Chase, I don't want to throw Drake London in there, but Mike Evans, right? Like, those guys shouldn't be up around the top 5. Unless you have a guy that's really that special, you shouldn't be taking them that high. So I think it kind of comes back to like, well, I don't think they're getting pushed down. I just don't think it's a real thin cream on top of this draft,
Can I tell you something that's going to shock and appall you, possibly? Might be the most stunning news I've ever shared on this podcast. I have a wide receiver as my guy. What? Me having wide receivers and running backs as my guys is the most predictable thing that's ever happened in the history of this podcast.
I probably know who it is.
Can I tell you something else though?
Is his first name 2 letters?
No.
Okay, it's not that guy.
No. I mean, it is 2 letters, but it's also more letters. It's 2 or more. Every year I have like at least one receiver and at least one running back. But the other thing I can tell you is that like I am damn good at it. Like we do really good with my guys on this podcast, but like my wide receiver picks are usually, I mean, I had JSN. Like, come on. And that was one of my biggest ones ever as I was like pounding the table for JSN. So I can do it. Pete
Carroll really tried to sandbag that one.
I know. He did his best, but it wasn't meant to be. There are some positions that I'm not as good at picking. I
had Egbuka last year, too.
You did. Yep. There are some positions I'm not as good at picking, but they're like wide receivers and running backs is like my sweet spot. So, but with that said, that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com, and you can watch the podcast on YouTube. Just search Fouled Out Sports. Give us a like and a subscription over there to help us grow that. Thank you very much. Matt and I will be back the next couple of weeks. Same Fouled Out time, same Fouled Out place, talking NFL draft content the entire month of April leading up to the NFL draft. So we'll have the My Guys podcast. We'll have a mock draft. We have some other fun gimmicks the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, like the draft recap pod after it's all over. So yeah, this is I don't know, man. This like month is where I think we really shine the most. This is what people say we do best. So super excited to get into the rest of it with you. But for now, we will see you guys later.
Yep. Bye guys.
Bye guys. Bye,
Bye,
Mom.
Robin.
Bye, Dad.